And yesterday I used this tool to both do a lathe and to drill a hole. I used about 5 different elements on this tool to fabricate a piece for.
Hi, I'm Kitsap County Commissioner Rob Gelder, and welcome to this episode of Commissioner's Corner. Today we're at the Barn, which is the Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network, so stay tuned and you'll learn a lot. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Commissioner's Corner. Today we are at the Barn, which is the Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network. And joining me are Jeff Williams and Catherine Camp. So thank you so much for being part of the program today.
It's delightful to be here.
Thank you. So for some folks watching the program, this will be the first time they've ever heard of the Barn, right? Most people hear the barn, they're thinking of a building, which we're in now, but what does it mean? You know, what does the Barn stand for? How did it come to be?
Well, Barn actually is, as you said, Bainbridge Artisan Resource Network, and really what we're trying to be is a community resource for artisans to be able to come, be together, learn skills, and promote the arts, you know, a makerspace type of idea. The idea was germinated in about 2012. Jeff can talk a little bit more about the history of the woodworkers program, but at 2012 the idea Barn emerged, and artisan groups were asked, are you interested in being part of this concept? And they looked around the community for a place that maybe they could set up some studios, they could set up some workshops. And after looking at some buildings and venues that were already here, the idea was inspired of let's build a building. And through some generous donations, they were able to locate a piece of property. And then once that was there, really the concept of Barn was blossomed. But I think the root was really in the concept of the woodworker studio. Maybe you could talk about that, because that's really the heart of what the concept is.
So we had a gentleman named Roger Lowen who wintered in Arizona, and he came back from a wood shop down there and decided he wanted to have something here in Bainbridge. And so we had the Bainbridge Community Woodworkers. We needed a space. He started to develop that. We looked for a building and to grow into a full-size community wood shop to develop here. It became difficult to do from a cost standpoint going it alone. And so it morphed into additional studios coming aboard, first fiber and then I believe jewelry and a couple other ones. And that was the birth of Barn, a group of artisan media groups working together. And from there, it grew as we started to develop the concept and the building itself to the point where we are now 13 studios. So we've just divided out the metal group into metal fabrication, welding, and machine shop. So we actually have 13 studios, sub-artist groups here within Barn.
Wow. So if I recall correctly, there was a physical place that the studios kind of functioned prior to this building being created.
Yes, we call that baby barn. So when the concept came, the land was bought. Very generously, John Paul Jones donated his architectural support to start building the concept and the building vision. We were talking about what that could look like, and we were all sitting around still looking for a space that maybe the woodworkers could work in. And we were all standing in a space in Rolling Bay that was about 2,000 square feet. And the conversation said, we need to practice what we're doing. We need a beta site. not a site that we're doing huge publicity, but a site that we could actually create the program structure to go to Barn. And so we rented the full 2,000 square feet, and in that, with that beta test site, we were able to develop all the studio models, the safety protocols, how to hire teachers, how to create a website. So one group was looking at how do we build the structure, and then at Baby Barn we learned how to create the programs, and what things the community wanted, what things would be good, and build that really strong volunteer core and the really strong studio model that is what propels the programs here at Barn.
And then beyond that, we were able, so when the Wood Studio was at Rolling Bay, we only had about a 3-car garage type of space. Now we're in 4,000 square feet of the Wood Studio and another 1,000 square feet in this room in here, which is our hand tool bench room. But at Rolling Bay, we were able to invite and work with every studio, every media group that was in there to develop their space in the new building as it was, the plans were being solidified, to where every studio got to design their space to fit their particular needs. So layout of the floor plan, electrical, all the cabinetry, as you eventually will see as you walk through the building later on, you will see how every space is unique. We just didn't take and make 13 rooms and make everybody fit in there. And so the studios came on board early in the design process and working with committees and so forth, and obviously in a planning model, we were able to build this to where it suits their needs and they can do exactly what they need to support their members in that particular medium.
So at some level, basically the programs, they outgrew the Baby Barn, and we're growing up and now into this space. So tell us a little bit about the process. So you mentioned it already, where each of the studios helped to design the space. How do you take very different designs and fit them into one envelope, and then sort of really launch down a multi-year campaign to make it all come to fruition?
Well, this building, as Catherine has said, Rolling Bay was 2,000 square feet. This building is 12,000 square feet.
25,000.
Excuse me, 25,000 square
Even
feet.
bigger.
It's even bigger. It's 12,500 on each level. It's a 2-story building. And the studios are split about half and half. One of the unique things about the construction of this building, it's an industrial design building. So you'll see that everything is exposed. So we can not only, we're able to put in what their needs were up front, but if their needs change going forward, we can alter the services, the infrastructure of the building to support their changing programs as they do additional things. For example, one of the things in the Wood Studio that we will be doing is adding a digital woodworking or a CNC program in here. So we were able to add the additional dust collection, electrical, and data inputs to the system to develop that program. Other studios are doing similar things in their spaces.
Oh.
And to speak to kind of the big picture is, we have a board of directors that basically looks at the all barn story. And so what are the things that we hold in common? And there's a staff that we've now hired, kind of a really core staff, but we do 900 hours a week of volunteer time. And that volunteer time happens at the studio level. And so the board and the staff are all there to really make sure each studio has the resources they need. So each studio has a steering committee, and Jeff is the retired original steering committee chair for woodworking, and you can talk a little bit about what happens at that studio level, because that's the nugget of creating and planning program.
Yes, so Barn's overall umbrella is the board of directors and the admin section upstairs. We call it the admin studio group. But every studio is unique in their own management. So they all have a studio lead, they all have a treasurer, they all have their own budgets, and most of them have their own steering committees, a group of people, again, all volunteers. Nobody on the studio level is compensated. We all volunteer our time to do this. Teaching the beginning classes, the orientations, the safety classes. That's all volunteers from the core group. And so the management of it is the studio lead and the steering committees, And then from there, they break it down into subgroups within the studios. If, for example, in here we have lathes in the boat building group, and we have people that are in charge of those areas to help coordinate that programming. And then every studio has programming chairs that develop the classes. They take the ideas, they build the classes, they find the instructors, they develop the compensation plan for that, and what the costs of the classes are going to be, and then they get them scheduled on the calendar, and away we go. We're all trying to schedule out about 6 months ahead of time. In some cases, instructors, we have to get on their calendars sometimes up to 2 years ahead of time to get key instructors in here. So it's a long process.
So it sounds like there's really autonomous units within each studio that the board serves as that umbrella.
Right.
So if there are common issues or concerns, it all kind of comes then to the board for...
Well, the board, and then we also have a working studio leads group where they sit and kind of work out how is it to run the studio, and what are you doing and what are we doing. And then we also do some all barn events. We try, a lot of members are in several different studios, and we do some members events. We offer some classes that are just skill building. How do you market your product? How do you build a website if you're an artist and wanting to do that? So then, there's some all barn support to all the studios. I kind of, when I do tours, I talk about it kind of like a small town, and each of these are businesses, and we have our commons area that's like the town square.
Okay.
And then, we're kind of like the town council, but each of these are, and that's like a very busy kind of industrial community is how I like to think about it.
So every community has governance of some sort.
Yeah.
So, and the other unique aspect of that is that Barnes administrative section upstairs is here to support the studios, but they don't really get involved in the artistry of the studios. They're left to develop their classes in their particular area, whether it's fiber or jewelry or the glass studio. And so, they don't get into that part of it, and then the administration is here to support them in all the other aspects to do it. And so some studios have a part that's in place to support, for example, kitchen can support caterers who want to come in at least kitchen time to develop product or food ideas. In the wood studio, we can have people come in who are doing maybe a one-off commercial project for a customer. They can use our equipment and they pay a little bit different rate. But the whole idea behind Barn and Barnes membership is that you join Barn, you have access to all the studios. You can take classes in any of the studios. All you have to do is go through the orientation and the safety classes for each one. And then you can come in and work on your projects or other things and take classes. And of course, if you're a Barn member, the classes are at a particular price. If you're not a member, it's a little bit more. So you give a little discount for being a member. You can be a member on a month-to-month or an annual basis.
Okay.
But again, you have access to all 13 studios. You're joining Barn, and you have this huge opportunity to work in all these different medias. And then the studios do projects and classes cross studios. We have this collaboration that we do, that when you might make part of the project here in the wood studio, then go to the metal studio and make some more of it. We'll be doing a summer class this summer in here, where they're going to be building a small boat with a sail. The boat's built in here. Down in fiber, they'll make the sails.
Oh, very cool.
And one of the things that you hear people say, what are the classes and how do I do the classes? And one of the things I like to encourage is, first of all, the membership is sort of the community that keeps going, but we are a community resource, and anybody can come in and participate. So you don't have to be a member to walk through the door, but the members are really the core of what we're doing. But the idea is the classes that you're taking is building the skills so you can be part of a community artisan group. So we have people who are very high-end artisans that come and do some of their work here, and they leave saying, I always come up with a new idea. I build my craft. I get, at home I'm all by myself, and here I get people who are job alike. When we did our big open studio, we had one of our community artists who is very, very well respected at a national level. And he was standing and just watching everything going on. And at the end of the day, I went up to him and he had tears kind of coming out of his eyes. And I said, he goes, this is the first time this community has really acknowledged what we do as artisans. We do it by ourselves at a poverty level most of the time. And this is really celebrating who we are. And it just gave me goosebumps,
Yeah.
you know, to think that, you know, that's what we're doing here. And so it's building that community, whether it's learning a new skill, doing community service, or just coming and hanging out with other job-alike people. All those are part of what we're about.
So it sounds like there's a lot of organic synergy that's going on within the studios themselves, and
Right.
probably really back to the formation of Barn.
Yeah.
That's coming together today. So tell us a little bit about the sort of the path that brought Barn here in the building. You said it started in 2012.
So as Jeff mentioned, you know, there was the woodworkers who were really looking for a community wood shop, and I think you probably knew every square foot of every empty building in a 10-mile radius. And then at the point that group kind of merged, because there was a fiber group also looking for spaces, there was this infamous bus trip on a Park District bus to go look at another kind of maker space. And in that bus, they had this, like, you know, synergetic conversation. We could do an artisan center that could really invite all artisans, and they came up with the name at that time, and they came up with the concept. And then the woodworkers merged with this new group of folks, and then a call went out, who all wants to be there, word of mouth, talking to folks. And even after we had the plans done, and okay, this is who it is, we brought in Bainbridge Community Broadcasting and added a media art studio. You know, we were growing up until we opened our doors. But it really kind of started in that synergetic, famous bus trip.
The bus trip,
yeah.
but was that 2012 though?
Yeah.
So you think about it, from 2012 and here we are in 2018, 6 years is a really short timeline to have an idea coalesce.
And actually only 5, because we've been open for 1 year.
That's right.
Yeah.
So 5 years basically to go from
Right.
this concept to fruition, where you've raised the money, you've found the property, you've done
Built
the
the
design and built it.
Right.
I mean, that's phenomenal. There's a lot of other groups in the community that would be jealous about that kind of a timeline.
You know, I think part of it was the right idea in the right time. This whole movement of maker studios and hands-on, the movement against the screen time, passivity. You know, I think there were a lot of just cultural and just in your head ideas that said, yeah, this is what we need. And we have people coming from all over the region saying, how did you do this? Is there another model like this? And we're saying, well, we took bits and pieces from other things, but folks are really interested in this model. I say people understand a community swimming pool or a community golf course, but a community artisan center is really a new player you know, at the table. And folks have really caught on to this idea, and we really have a lot of other communities coming and taking a look at what we've done.
We actually had a group from Toronto that came all the way down.
Wow.
And they'd heard about Barn and they'd seen our website, and they came down, same questions that you're asking. How did you do this? How did you do it so fast? Why is it so wonderful?
Yeah.
But if I could expand on a little bit on what Catherine was saying about community, there's 2 other things that are important to mention. One is the community has been so supportive of Barn, not just on Bainbridge, but Kitsap County and in this greater area on the west side from Seattle, that we make it part of our mission to do community service projects. So the community comes to us with requests and we respond. The Wood Studio has done several projects. We've made some really nice authentic Asian benches that are in the Japanese Exclusion Memorial Park. We've done projects for the schools and you know, many things in the community, and the community knows that they can come and make a request to Barn. They will pass this out to the different studios, see if they want to participate, and sometimes it's not just one studio, but multiple studios will get involved in the community service projects. But the second thing I wanted to mention was that as we are spinning up our program and our classes to support our membership, we're reaching out further and working with the schools and the colleges to develop the vocational training programs and classes that will help. We have professionals on the inside. We have people that are just experienced, in our case, woodworkers, but all the studios do, experienced with their media. And then when these youth programs and the kids come in, whether it's as interns or summer programs, they get that training. We're starting to work with a program that will involve composites, and like I said, digital. We have digital machines both in metal and in the wood studio and in the electronic and technical arts. So the kids can come in and learn these things, and then hopefully it sows those seeds for their vocational or their training later on in life, things that will interest them that they'll pursue.
I had a really great example of that
Sure.
I just think is wonderful. We had a high school student doing an internship with one of our chefs who's cordon bleu trained. So and she's worked all over the world. So you have this high-end cordon bleu chef, and then you have a high school kid who all semester worked in early release day to do early release works. Then we had a middle school group that wanted to do community service of making meals for a senior home. So the cordon bleu chef trained, worked with the high school student, who then the high school student ran the middle school service project, and then the middle schoolers donated the foods to the senior center. And I thought that is all in one package. That's it.
That's fantastic. Yep. And if we could stick with the sort of the vocational piece of it before, because I many times have conversations with folks about the trades and really the lack of a workforce. I mean, there's a huge gap that we had people leave it during the economic downturn, and we're really having a hard time having it come back. And we just recently hosted with our Public Works Department a career day with career and technical education counselors around the county. And I think there's really that important role and vital role of that of any organization. So it sounds like this, entrepreneurial, vocational support that's happening here.
So, I'm glad you brought that up, because we're just starting an initiative where we're taking a look at all of our studios and saying, okay, this can be a platform to build the hobby you ever wanted, and this can be the platform to get to know other professionals in your field, but this can also be a platform for building your career and work skills. So we're just going to be launching a study group that looks at what are those things in each studio that could build skills that maybe at the end of it, like the beginning woodworking class we take, at the end of it you could get a certificate. And then you could go to a construction company and say, look, I finished this beginning woodworking skills, or I learned to use these 5 pieces of equipment in the machining shop, so that we could start being part of people building those career and work skills. And so we're just starting and launching a study group in the next month to say what are those pathways that we have that could end with some, just certificate of completion that says, I know how to use a CNC router, I know how to use a CNC routing machine, or lathe, am I getting the right,
You're correct.
Yeah, I know how to use a plasma cutter, I can do this, and that's our first step into so come a platform for building that hobby you ever wanted, a platform for knowing other professionals in your area, a platform to service the community, but also a platform to build your own work-based skills. And that's the piece we're starting to work on right now.
And that's a great point. Our metal studio upstairs, now in 3 pieces, where else can a young person or a young adult go and get exposed to gas welding, electrical, TIG welding, plasma welding, and get that exposure to decide that not only do maybe I want to go into welding or into metalworking, but which part of it interests me and I want to pursue later on. We are able to offer those things through our classes. And it's exposure, if nothing else. It plants the seeds that take them forward.
Yeah, an example is we had a student come in because he was really interested in welding. Right down the hallway, there's the jewelry studio. And he poked his nose in. The only difference between the two is the type of metal you use and the how large it is. And now he's like living in the jewelry studio, and next year he wants his senior year of high school, that's what he wants to be doing all year. And we have one member of the jewelry studio that's just written a book about how to help youth in the jewelry world move into apprenticeships. And we're going, maybe this is a beta for that. Maybe this is a test of how they get enough skills and then we help them find an apprenticeship. Who knows, but that potential is here.
Oh, it sounds awesome. And I only wish that this program were longer because I feel on some level that we've only scratched the surface. And for all of our viewers watching this program, I definitely encourage you to check out the barn website. Also, come and tour the barn. I believe there are tours every Sunday from 1 to 3. And it's just amazing that the ideas were these different groups coming together, coalescing, and it seems like it's taken on a life of its own.
It certainly has.
Thank you so much for being part of the program today, and encourage everyone to watch it, check out, learn more, and we'll see you next time.